Hi there, terrific teachers and techies. Mario here. And today I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about creating an assignment in Google Classroom. Now, this video here isn't about this is how the way you should do it, but I just want to highlight a few things about creating an assignment and a few options you have. So, really, there is no right or wrong way. It's going to really come down to your students, the type of assignment you're creating, and what you want the students to do with that assignment. So, I'm going to highlight these options you have, and hopefully, you'll have a better sense of what options and what settings you like to use when you're creating assignments with your students. So, first thing I just kind of want to mention are about topics here. So, topics are important, and that can come from under the create button. You can create topics. So these are just sort of I don't know what you want to call them, the headings, the sections of your classwork. And again, no right or wrong way how you want to organize it. Could come down to what you teach, what grade level you teach, and really it's how you want to sort of organize your work within your classwork here. So I just have a few sample ones here. You could put them up by subject, you could do things by week. It doesn't really matter. And the topics will do is instead of having a huge long stream of all your, so if you put in 20 assignments and they just sort of show up randomly, and if they're one's a math, one's a language arts, one's maybe just some information you need your students to read, whatever it might be, a link, a website, instead of just sort of all popping in randomly, organizing topics just helps you and helps the students sort of find the work. One thing I don't have it here in this sample. Sometimes I do encourage teachers to create maybe a past work or completed work topic. So, if you did have a math topic and there are lots of assignments in there, but maybe a couple are from a few weeks ago, you can move those into that section there. So they're still in your Google Classroom, but they're in that section called completed work. So it just sort of keeps a record of everything that's been done so far. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to create an assignment. And when you create an assignment, again, lots of options pop up here, and you will find the ones that work best for you. And they'll vary. You might do one assignment one way one day, and then depending on the next assignment, may change it up after that. So you'll always start off with a title here. I'm just going to call it something pretty basic, questions. Putting the titles in sometimes. I've seen putting a hashtag in there, so it's a math related assignment. Uh, Any ways that identify them better for the students. So if I do questions, I wouldn't want to do another questions in my science topic, questions in my language arts. So sometimes putting a hashtag in there, like hashtag math, questions, whatever, that sort of works in there. You do have an option for instructions here, totally optional. So really it's up to you. And then down here, actually, before we get to that, we'll kind of look over here. So when you create your assignment, you'll have quite a few options here. So, one thing that's kind of neat is if you teach this subject to multiple classrooms, instead of having to go in and recreate that assignment in the next classroom. So, if you teach, a couple sections of Science 10 or Grade 7 Social Studies, you could just check off the other classrooms you have, and this assignment would go into those classrooms. So, it's kind of a handy way to push things out, not having to recreate things. Another great little feature is so doesn't mean that because you create an assignment, all students are going to be completing the same assignment. So if you're differentiating your instruction, maybe tasking groups to work on something, you can go into students and then check off by default, this is going to all students. I can undo that and check off which students I want to work within this assignment. Okay. So that's kind of another way you can push things out. So only those students who I have checked off will see this assignment. All right. Points is another thing here. Again, not it's up to you how you would do your point system. Often ungraded is probably the simplest way, but really, uh, however works for you. Due date's another option here. You can set the due date and even specific time. So, if I picked April 22nd, I can put in a time as well. That does not prevent the student from submitting something. It just will, if they hand in something that's past the due date you assign, it'll just show up red and say it's late. So really, it doesn't prevent things, but sometimes Using the dates is good if you're using your calendar, because then that will start populating in your Google Calendar. So it depends if you're using your Google Calendar. Dates might come to play that way just to sort of keep students on track. And then this is here where you would put in the topic. So if I was doing these for math, I would put in the math topic. That's important. And you can always change that later if you forget to add it in. You will see a couple other newer options. I mean, they've been around for a few months now. You can attach rubrics. Now, this isn't pulling rubrics that maybe you have created in a Google Doc. It's kind of created within Classroom. So I'm not going to kind of go into the details of that, but you can create a rubric and then reuse that rubric as you see here. So if I do create like something on a 4-point scale, for an assignment, I could create that and then reuse that for various assignments. You can import some things from Sheets, but if you have created, say, a rubric for a particular project or assignment, I usually just add it in here, which we're going to look at here. You can add that as a Google Doc as part of the assignment. Just below rubric, you do have something here for originality reports. This one here, you can only use it 3 times per Google Classroom. So what this does, if you check that off, you'll see something pop up. It says you can only use originality reports on 3 assignments per class. And what that does is if it's, say, a writing assignment, Google will check that assignment against other websites out there in the internet and check for maybe areas that may have been taken from other websites. Not to say the students are intentionally cheating, but maybe they just maybe haven't learned about how to cite properly, how to sort of take information from other websites. So it does give you a little report on that. But keep in mind, you can't do that for every assignment. So if it is something you're interested in, you sort of have to pick and choose how you use it. All right, last little bit here in the assignment is, I guess, what do you want your students to do? So under add, you can add a whole bunch of things. You can take things from your Google Drive, you can link videos, and you can link multiple things in here. So if I was, say, going to get them to answer some questions in my vague description there of questions, again, I'm pulling from my Google Drives. Let's say I want the students to answer some questions that are on this sheet. So when I hit add, pops in there, as you can see. I could go in and add more things. So I could add, like I said, another Google Drive document that maybe has the rubric for this assignment. I could put links. Maybe there's a website that goes with this, whatever it might be. Really, you can add more things to it. You could also, maybe the students aren't going to write answers on this assignment. So there is always the option for them to create something. So they can create their own doc, slide, sheets, whatever it might be that they want to add to it. Now, this is the important one here that sometimes I forget to do, and maybe you do as well. So by default is that students can only view file. So that's fine if you want students to just read something and maybe they're going to create something on their own and not change this document in any way. So that's the default there. So you could do a few things. If I click students edit file, that means that all the students that this gets assigned to are working on the same document. So it might not be something to use often, but just keep that in mind. And there's the last one here, which is make a copy for each student. So this one is good if you want them to write on this. Maybe they're working on something. And what will happen is, so this one, for example, is called Serial Challenges. It takes that document, it inserts their name in the title, so you know whose is whose. They work on it, and they can submit it back to you. So that's sort of how you create an assignment. Lots of options in here. Down at the last thing that you'll do is up top here under Assign. So you do have a few options. You could save it as a draft if you weren't ready to go through it yet. You could schedule it. Now, this is important too, especially as now we're moving into e-learning, and a lot of us may be working on a 2-week cycle of assignments and things that we have the option to do. So just sometimes if you schedule everything out, if you assign everything at once, and maybe there's 20 or 30 different things, that's all going to populate right in your Google Classroom. And then what that means is the student may get 20 or 30 notifications of things that have popped up in the classroom. Could be overwhelming for some. So sometimes scheduling comes into play. So you can schedule something where you get the calendar and maybe you're going to release a couple of assignments and then maybe even later in the day or the next day you release some more and kind of work it that way. So not everything pops out at once. You do have that option as well. One thing I will add too is if I had forgotten to change this, so I left it as students can view file. What that would mean is once I assigned it, it's out there. So you can go back and edit it, but you cannot edit this section here. So once I've assigned it as a view only and I really wanted it to be make a copy, I can't change that. So the only way to really do that is to delete the whole assignment and reassign it again. The only things you can do in editing are sort of change the title, change the dates things are due. If I want to change to a different topic, things like that. So a lot of information here, a lot of things you can do with Google Classroom in terms of assignments. Hopefully you find some little tips here that'll help you in creating your assignments. And when you send these out to students, it may change from time to time. Thank you very much.